Well, good morning. I am excited to talk to you this morning. I just got over a cold. I am feeling fantastic today. It is April 17th, 2018, and we're going to cover several things today. I want to talk about a free to play game called Ironsight that is on PC. It's been on PC since earlier this year, around February. I'm going to talk about an article that I saw on Eurogamer yesterday, and we're going to talk about Robo Infinity, Anthem, and God of War. But so let's just start off with Ironsight. If this is not a game that you are familiar with, let me tell you, it's a first-person shooter. It's probably been tagged as a clone of Call of Duty, and I think it's fair. That's a fair assessment. It's definitely a clone. That's like a nice way of saying it's a ripoff or a knockoff. But that necessarily is not a bad thing if you're a gamer who likes to partake in the free-to-play games, which are, let's be honest, are the best priced games free-to-play. And that's why I wanted to talk about it. A little insight about me on first-person shooters. I'm a fan of the genre. I used to play a ton of first-person shooters. I don't play so much now. And that's the real reason, if I'm being honest, is because I stink at them. Probably not that bad. I'm probably being really harsh because I don't, I'm not like a negative kill-death ratio guy, but like I'm just not as good as I used to be. And I am hyper-competitive. I've been competitive my whole life. Sports in high school, joining the military when I was young, and getting out. I've been competitive my whole life. I mean, I compete with my wife on just very trivial things, and luckily I married someone who is also competitive and understands that sickness that people who are hyper competitive have. So my love for the first person shooter genre hasn't waned, but it's because I'm just too competitive, and frankly it takes all the maturity that I have to not be a sore loser when I'm playing a competitive game. I mean, I play Overwatch and have a lot of fun, but frankly, it's real easy for me to be like, everyone sucks because we lost. It's not me. Attitude that is prevalent in a lot of these games. But I have because of maybe age and experience, I have the wisdom to know and look in the mirror and know it's me. But anyways, I started off with I think the first-person shooter I played that I fell in love with was, and this is going to date me, but it was called Delta Force, and it was by a company called Nova Logic. It came out in like 1998, and I loved that game. It had I can't remember if it had multiplayer, but I remember playing these like missions. They were kind of a hark back to like these 80 action movies, the Commando, Rambo, Chuck Norris theme type movies. And it was, just great fun. It had like running and gunning. It had like sniping. It had like everything you would like about a first person shooter game. And I remember playing that, and also playing Battlefield 1942 and just having a blast. And the genre has grown greatly since then. I mean, you have these behemoths in Sledgehammer, Infinity War, etc. The whole Call of Duty series. Well, anyway, segue that to Ironsight. The game came out. It's in open beta in February. And it's on PC. I don't have the website at my disposal, but if you just Google Ironsight PC or just Ironsight, you should be able to find it. It's you download it. It's a client-based game, completely free to play, and it gets a lot of things right, but it gets a few things wrong. But let's just talk about what it gets right and why I'm mentioning it. One, it's a free to play game, like I said, and there's really no risk in trying it. If you like first person shooters, if you don't like first person shooters, then maybe you want to skip ahead in this podcast. But anyways, what it gets right is it kind of captures the mechanics and the magic that you kind of felt if you're familiar with Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops, which I think the reason I mention those, I would say, in my personal opinion, and I think it can be debated, that those are probably the two biggest successes in the Call of Duty series. They really kind of are the benchmarks of what people go, well, when they say Call of Duty, what was the mega successful ones, and why they were successful. And why they were successful was for a lot of reasons. Obviously, I think the timing, but also just the polish that these two games had, and also the access it had to the type of person who plays first-person shooters. Because the first-person shooter is a tough genre. It has to cater to so many different mentalities. You know, everyone, depending on your mentality, has a bias to what the most prevalent style of first-person shooters there is. There's people like basically running gunners. There's people who are, i.e. campers. And then there's people who are just kind of a hybrid in between. They're kind of a minority. But the two main groups are like the campers and the running gunners. But I want to just talk about what camping really is, because that definition is thrown around a lot. Oh, that person's a camper. Okay, I'm going to go with Dr. Disrespect's definition of camping, because he used to work on one of the Call of Duties, and now he's obviously a very popular Twitch streamer. Camping is when you literally stay in one spot of the map the entire game. Like, you go down to the prone and you just lay there and you don't move. That's what camping actually is. Camping's not hovering over a lane and waiting for enemies to run around a corner, running gun. That's not camping. That might suck for you if you're a running gunner, but that's not actually what camping is. Being strategic and slowly, methodically moving and covering a lane, that's not actually camping if you're a long-range shooter and a first-person shooter. And that's why running gunners hate them, because running gunners want to twitch speed kill you down with a pray and spray like P90 or SMG. But anyways, after we got that out, what Ironsight gets right is it makes a game that balances for those two types of people. And that's what Black Ops 1 did, Black Ops 2 did as well. Modern Warfare 2 did that extremely well. It allowed and had map designs that allowed both types of players to thrive. And when you can do that, and you create obviously a platform that allows that, you have the makings for a good game. And that's what it gets right. Now, let me just jump to what I would say is the biggest negative, because it does have microtransactions, and one of the things that I've noticed that its critics have given this game is that it has pay-to-win features, and I think that's debatable, because the way the game works, the way it's monetized, it's partly cosmetic, and then the way you unlock weapons, you could potentially spend money to unlock weapons. They have an in-game currency that you can earn. It's pretty generous, because they have a daily login reward. And I would have to say that I have not spent any money, and I've played against people who have spent money, and there's really not a advantage gap. So it has a fine balance, but I could see someone who looks at their monetization system, because it's a little convoluted. And what I mean is it's complicated. It's very hard to explain it unless I had the game in front of you. And you can see I'm running footage here of that, but that's a little iffy. But I would say that the game itself is pretty solid on its own merits, so I can kind of ignore that, because the fact the access is free to play. So I'm bringing this up because I encourage you to play it. I have some followers and friends that I know who play it, who are actually listening to this, and it kind of gave me the idea to try it myself, and I'm kind of probably late to the wagon. But Ironsight, if you're looking to kind of scratch that first-person itch, because maybe the Call of Duty that's out right now isn't doing it for you, it's free to play. Unfortunately, it's only on PC, and it's not very graphically intense. It looks a little dated, but it's actually very fun play. It has a few modes. I encourage you to check it out. On other topics, I noticed that yesterday there was an article on Eurogamer.net, and the article was titled "EA admits it got it wrong over Star Wars Battlefield 2 loot boxes." And not to rehash the entire article, I'll have it linked here down in the description if you want to go check it out. It's basically rehashing a conversation that the website The Verge did with Patrick Soderlund. He is the Electronic Arts Chief Design Officer, and essentially he basically talks about the lessons learned about the whole loot box debacle with Star Wars Battlefront 2. And if you're not familiar with that, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is obviously a licensed Star Wars game. It's a AAA first-person shooter set in the Star Wars universe, developed by DICE and published by Electronic Arts. And it didn't do as well as they had projected. It sounds asinine. It sold 7 million copies instead of 9 or whatever their benchmark number was. But that was enough to make the people at EA go, holy shit, we screwed up. We have to go back and recalibrate, because obviously it wasn't just that the numbers were low, but the PR that they got for this debacle was huge. And this kind of goes in connection with the upcoming game that EA is publishing for BioWare called Anthem. And if you haven't heard about Anthem, or you probably have if you're listening to me or into games, Anthem it's kind of in the same vein as Bungie's Destiny. It's going to be a narrative-driven first-person shooter, semi-sci-fi, spacey adventure with seasonal support, or MMO light is what they call it, and it's BioWare's latest biggest venture, and it had recently been delayed, and it's been a lot of hype for it, and they did show a demo for Anthem, and it looks really impressive, but on the heels of the Star Wars Battlefront 2 debacle, they announced a delay for it. And so, of course, everyone went to the conclusion, when I say everyone, I'm talking about gaming journalism 101, went to the conclusion that Anthem must have had this a similar or very close to loot or microtransaction system as Star Wars Battlefront 2. And so EA was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe we should reevaluate this, because if this game busts for us, it's going to actually really hurt us financially. And, I think that's a good thing. This is the market reacting to constructive criticism. This is the market reacting to, I think, people who actually have real concerns about microtransactions in video games. And, I personally am to each their own. If you have a ton of money that you want to throw into a game, and that's what your hobby is, you have that right to do that. But I also understand people who feel like it's a concern, especially to children, and what kind of lessons it teaches them. That kind of, I think, the argument for it triggers gambling impulses. And as a father and a parent, I understand that. I understand both sides of the arguments, and I can see that. But my point is that this article talks about the lessons they learned, and so we're going to see. We're going to see real soon if they learn. And Anthem is going to be the answer to that. So I ask you, I'm very curious for you people who are listening, and I really appreciate the support I've been getting. I'm getting a lot more listeners lately, and I appreciate that. Let me know. I like to know what you think. I like to take the pulse of what everyone thinks about this, because I see all the gaming journalists talk about it, but what do real people think about the loot boxes? And microtransactions in general. I'd love to know what you think, and debate it, argue it, or agree, or whatever. I'd like to know. Let me know. On the other better news, I want to talk about another free-to-play game that recently has come out. Unfortunately, this one is a Xbox exclusive, Xbox One exclusive, Robo Infinity. And the reason why I want to mention this game is because I particularly noticed my children, my two sons, they're 14 and 12. They absolutely adore this game. It's kind of like, the best way to describe it would be like a Lego building robo multiplayer fighting game. You basically unlock pieces to build a mech or a robot, and then you take that robot and go into an arena and fight other people's robots that they control. and it's part of the season pass. So if you have Xbox's season pass, it's on that. If you end up buying it, I think the entry point is $20, and then it has like up versions, like a $30 and $40 version unlocks things because you do unlock it. I was a beta tester for this, and it's not really my jam. It's not really. I think it's more of a young kids or young persons type game. But I have to be honest, I was really impressed with the way it worked, and I really was impressed with the multiplayer because. You build a robot with these like Legos. They're not Legos obviously because they obviously can't afford that license. It's like whatever they call them, bits or whatever they call them in the game. But you build a mech, and then you go to this arena and you fight other mechs. You can make they have like some prefab recipes, so you don't they're not called recipes. They're like blueprints or something more sophisticated sounding than that. It's not like you're baking a chocolate chip cookie or something, so it's not recipes, I'm sorry. But basically you get these crafting, recipes, and you build your mech, and you go into an arena, and you're fighting other mechs that other people created. And, if you have a mech that has, it's bipedal, you can shoot someone else's leg off, and they slow down. And it's just really fantastic. You can even make flying mechs. You can make a tank mech or just a fast moving mech with wheels, a hovering mech. I mean, really lots of possibilities that you could build. And so that's what kind of intrigued me because it kind of has a open design, and I have not seen a game kind of execute this concept before so well. And I would encourage you, if you're into building type games, or if you were into the Minecraft kind of genre, give this game a try. Check it out. It's really, really fun, and I'll include a link in the comments. So, I just want to go ahead and wrap this up, and I want to, right off the bat, thank everyone who's been listening. I got a huge surge of listeners, and I really appreciate you. And I thank you for spending the time to listen to my thoughts. I want to just add one thing for people who live in a cave or don't know. God of War is coming out in a few days, April 20th on PlayStation. It's a PlayStation exclusive. I probably won't be doing a lot of coverage or content around God of War, simply because you already know if you want to buy or play God of War. I think I made a video. My first video on YouTube talks about how some reviews are meaningless, and I was talking about in comparisons of Far Cry 5. And it's a generalization. I know some people do need reviews, but I would say for God of War, you don't need a review. Most people have a good idea if they either want to play God of War or they don't. It's such a powerhouse franchise, and if you look at the hype and the early reviews, they're insanely high. And so, I'm not going to be doing a lot of coverage. I probably will talk about it or maybe do a couple of things on my website about it. But I just wanted to touch on that because I have a philosophy behind gaming coverage, which is what I'm doing. But I feel like games that are just everyone knows, it's just household names, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, that kind of. God of War is that type of game. Yes, there are people out there who are on the fence and are like, I gotta wait till a review to see because I don't really know. Yeah, well, I get that, but let's be honest. Most people know if they want to play God of War or not, and especially with the hype. I mean, it should be either. I'm not a big fan of pre-ordering because it's not really pre-ordering; it's pre-buying. But I don't know how they get away with calling it pre-ordering. But God of War is a game that I understand why people would pre-order. So that's what I wanted to wrap up with. I wanted to talk about my philosophy on what kind of games I cover. I kind of want to cover games that people don't know about or isn't getting super hype, because what use is it me being the 1,000th person on YouTube talking about a game that everyone's talking about? It's not helpful. And why would you care what I think about God of War when there's 20 YouTubers and personalities who have way more following and more pull than I do that can tell you? So, but with that, I want to just say thank you again for listening. I appreciate it, and I'm going to be trying to do 1 or 2 of these a week, and hopefully they will continue to get better. I'm striving to just consistently do better, make a better podcast. I'm actually going to try to start including game footage when I can. I have time to render it. like I did with this one today. So thank you again. I hope you have a great day, great week, and thank you for listening.